Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And grab some coffee, grab, I don't know, some tea, glass of wine, whatever is your thing, and just sit down because I'm going to tell a little bit of a story on here. How I use prayer, meditation, and affirmation in my life today to get through some hard things. And it's all based off of this conversation that I was having with a friend of mine earlier on the phone. And we were talking about resentment in our lives. And, resentment, I think a lot of people understand as grudges or, having anger or hard feelings towards somebody, whether it's about something that they did or something that they didn't do, or having, expectations and things like that. I was always taught that a resentment is an unfulfilled expectation. So a resentment is when we think that a person or an organization, it could be like an entire place that we work for or a school or whatever, or a parent or a friend, or it could be somebody that we don't even know, right? When we think that they should have acted a certain way and they don't, or, we're surprised by somebody's behavior and it falls short of what we expected them to do. So I was always taught that a resentment was an unfulfilled expectation in my life. I also have learned that resentments are the #1 offender, meaning that if I keep resentments in my life, it's just going to make me sicker, and that typically when I have a resentment towards somebody, many times they don't even know it, right? So basically, they're renting space in my head for free. When I have many resentments that are going through my head on a daily basis, if I'm angry at this teacher that I had, in such and such grade because she didn't stand up for me, or, a friend of mine because they fell short, or this or that, right? If I have all those resentments going on in my head, it's hard for me to stay positive. And typically at that point, then I'm going to always see things in life from a point of negativity, not a point of positivity. So for me, not just in recovery, and resentments are a huge part of recovery. When you do a 4-step inventory, which is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of my life, you do a whole list of resentments, right? The trick on that is that you get to look back later and see what your part is in that resentment, and that's always so much fun, to see that to some degree, whether your resentment is that you haven't chosen to work through it or that you're holding on to it, that there is a part of you that has some control in how you respond to that resentment today, if that makes sense. And that's been hard for me to grasp, in my life. Growing up and in my childhood and even in my adulthood, I've had some shit done to me that I don't feel like I have any part in whatsoever. And the part that I have in that is that I will allow it to continue to bother me on a regular basis without giving myself the freedom and the liberation to work through that. And so my part in that is doing the work to work through those really hard, tough issues, that are painful and things like that. So I wanted to talk a little bit on here about how I move through resentment today. It's not easy. It's not something that just happens overnight like that. I don't just go, oh, like, I wish I wasn't resentful at this person anymore, or I wish I wasn't resentful at this thing anymore, and I just move right on, It's something that takes some time. It's something that takes, for me, a little bit of inventory to sit down. And when I say inventory, what I mean by that is writing, just, taking an inventory. Like if you owned a store, you would go in and you would take a written inventory of all the products that you have and what you had sold and what was still good to sell and what was needing to get rid of. And inventory is very similar to that, in your personal life. It's like looking at your attributes, your assets, and what you want to keep, and looking at what you want to get rid of. Are there behaviors and character defects that you want to work on to get rid of? Are there things like resentment, anger, fear that are not working for you in your life, and do you want to get rid of those? And it's all part of that. Inventory is all part of that. And, doing it regularly to look at that and say, this is who I am today. This is where I stand today with, these are my assets, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, this is the shit that needs to go, these are the things I need to work on. And, typically the good things don't make me, want to drink in the past. They don't make me, not a healthy person. Typically the things that I'm currently working on are not the problems. The things are over here, and I used to call them oven issues, right? Because it's like, we have those issues that are front burner issues, the front burner things that are bothering us. And those are the things that if you wake up today and I said, okay, what's bothering you today? It'd be the first thing that came out of your mouth. And then there's back, you know, like stove issues. And those are things that, like, if you're cooking, you can reach over, but it's a little bit harder and you have to reach around the other issues to get there, you know. And then there are, like, you know, refrigerator issues that you have to bring out and, like, you know, warm up a little bit. But then there are, like, oven issues that just sit in the oven and they just kind of, like, bake and bake and bake. And over time, I also used to say deep freezer issues, and those are the issues that we don't ever want to talk about or touch, right? And then there are, like, these oven issues, and the oven issues are, you know, listen, I used to talk about this with my sponsor back in the day. This is something he and I used to talk about, these different kinds of issues. He taught me how to live life through analogies. And so I'm not somebody that is, you know, super, super smart. I'm just not. But I get things when they're, like, told in stories to me. So he would tell me things in stories. And so oven issues are those issues that just kind of simmer and just sit there, and they just, like, you know, like, they bake and we get angrier and angrier about them. And those are the really, really dangerous issues for me, are the ones that I don't really see because the oven door is closed and I don't really talk about, but they're there and they're inside of me, and they, you know, just take seed and grow. And I talked a little bit about that on here yesterday, but I wanted to talk about how I move through resentment, because that's actually more powerful to me today than the resentments in my life. You know, I can sit here all day long and tell you about all my resentments, you know. When I did my original 4-step, and I had to make a list of resentments, I said, okay, so, like, I don't understand what to do. And my sponsor was like, well, you make a list of all the people that you're resentful for. And I was like, oh, I'm ready for this. Get me that paper. I'm ready to go, right? So, you know, and he goes, well, it's a little bit deeper than that. And then I had to read about resentment and see what it was about. But, you know, I was ready to tell on some people. I was ready to tell on some people that had done me wrong in my life, you know. Many, many people that I felt like that. And the reality is, I don't have that many people in my life today that do me wrong. I don't have super high expectations for people. And I also, I'm not surprised by people as much as I used to. I think that's something that happens as you get older. Or maybe it's just something that happens as you've gone through a lot of shit, you know? I would say that I'm not cynical. I'm definitely idealistic about the world. I very much believe that people are good at heart somewhere deep inside. I think that people's behaviors and their actions come out of different ways. They come out of validation or their need for acceptance, or, you know, we always want to say attention seeking is bad, right? But, like, attention seeking is not necessarily bad. Maybe the way that it comes out is, like, perceived as negative, but maybe underneath there what it is I just want attention because I never have really received it in a positive way, and I want people to love me, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, you know? I think for us to want people to love us and be kind to us and like us, I think it's okay. Like, and I think that we need to stop acting in this world, at least for me and the people that I talk to, you know, in my regular life. I think that we need to stop acting like I don't give a shit what people think about me. I do, you know, like I really do care what people think about me. And that's why I don't just work on myself to be the best version of myself on a daily basis. I work on myself because I want the people around me that love me, my husband, my family, you know, my closest friends, I want them to respect me and care about me, you know? And so I think that one of the biggest issues is that we have to work with resentment, because resentment is a blockage to getting to some things in our lives, like getting to the positive. So for me, and I learned this lesson in my, I think it was like a year and a half sober, I can't remember. But I was friends with this guy, and it was right when I started, like, going back out to clubs. And I didn't go back out to clubs for, like, a year and a half, 2 years. So it was somewhere in there. And I went out one night with 2 sober friends, and I went to this bar in Indianapolis called the Vogue. And on Sunday nights, they had, like, this gay dance night. And I was out dancing with my friends and stuff. And I saw this guy out that I knew from meetings. And I went up to him. I was like, hey, how are you doing? And I'm holding a Diet Coke in my hand, okay? And he said, and I noticed, like, when I was talking to him that he was like, and he said, I'm good, how are you? And I said, oh, I'm great, I'm having fun, haven't been out, whatever, I don't know. So anyway, flash forward, the next day, I start getting calls from people saying, like, you know, like, that they were worried about me, I was drinking again, and I'm like, what is going on, right? So I talked to somebody, and they said something to the effect, I mean, it's been so long, I cannot remember the details of the story, but they said something about, you know, this is, if you've watched my videos and I talk about picking up teeth with broken fingers, this was another moment I said that to him, and I am not proud of that moment, okay? But anyway, this guy had gone out after the bar, and he had told people that he had seen me drinking because I had a Diet Coke in my hand. I confronted him, and I said, listen, okay, this is not cute. You're not going to do this shit, all right? And he goes, I said, I don't understand why you wouldn't just come to me instead of talking to other people. And he was like, well, that's not really what I do. And I really like just, you know, like I go to my support group and I go, okay, but then you're affecting my reputation, right? I mean, somewhere in this conversation was, oh, by the way, if you keep on talking about me that way, you're going to be picking up teeth with broken fingers. That was my go-to for about 10 years. So anyway, I owe that to my good Judy Krista back in the day. So anyway, so we kind of worked it out and things were fine, right? But I was pissed. I did not want to see this guy. I didn't want to see him anywhere. And he has since passed on, and thankfully we worked things out, you know, and I'm happy about that. I don't want to have resentment in my life today and never be able to, you know, work through it, and then somebody leaves this world and we weren't able to say something to them like, I apologize for what I said to you, right or wrong, you know? I don't want to leave this world and have that hanging on me, if that makes sense. I talked to my sponsor at the time, and I was so pissed, and I was like, let me tell you what this guy did to me, and blah, 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 whatever, and he was like, well, you know, 2 things, you're going to make amends to him, and number 2, you're going to get down on your knees, and you're going to pray for the resentment to be removed for him every day, or pray for him every day, and the resentment to be removed, and I said, the hell I am. No, I'm not doing it. And he goes, yeah, you're going to pray for this guy, and you're going to pray for the resentment to be removed, and I was like, no, I can't do it. I refuse to do it. You know, 23 years ago and 9 months when I got sober to about my first 3 years, everything my sponsor told me, if he said, you need to do this, was always like, my response was always no. Always, okay? Always. And I was so resistant to anything back then. And, you know, I'm not that today. I'm open to that. I don't even ask why anymore. If somebody tells me I need to do something, I just do it, you know? When I came back in, I talked the other day about coming back in, and I had no emotional sobriety. But I really hid behind the fact that I had so many years of sobriety, like that meant something, okay? Like this condition of me having 18 years of sobriety at the time meant something. Like, who'd care, okay? I had no sobriety that anybody wanted at that time. My camera just keeps on shutting off when I do these Peterisms videos, just like my vlog. I don't get it, because I'm not at like... Anyway, so, you know, at 18 years, I had nothing that anybody wanted, but like... I would always kind of work it into my shares and meetings. I would say like, oh, I have 18 years, or, you know, I've been here since I was 22 or whatever, you know? And so my sponsor at the time, he said, you're going to start going to different meetings and you aren't going to share your time at all. You need to allow people to think that you're a newcomer in the meetings. And let me tell you, it was eye-opening for me, you know? I wasn't allowed to say to anybody like how much time I had or how long I had been in sobriety or anything. And he said, you really need to feel what it feels like to be a newcomer. And so I did, and, you know, it was kind of like I learned everything all over again, weirdly enough, and did things that I had never done before in sobriety positively, you know, worked on issues that I had never worked on before. And one of the issues that I did was effectively worked on resentments. And back in the day when my sponsor told me you're going to pray for this resentment to remove, I did do that, okay? I totally did. And there were a couple people that I had to pray for. There was this good friend of mine back in the day, and she and I got into it in sobriety, and I had to pray for her for a long time, and she and I are good friends today. And that's the result of it, you know? And if you don't believe in prayer, you don't believe in higher power, that's okay, you know? Like, you could sit down and just, like, talk things out rationally to yourself and say, like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to feel negatively anymore. You know, like, I don't want to feel this way towards this person, and just write it down or journal about it. It doesn't have to be this deeply spiritual thing, although for me, I do feel like it works. So today in my life, when I have a resentment, okay, my sponsor always says to me, you need to pray on this person. You need to pray for them, and you need to pray for the resentment to be removed. And I don't ever question it today, you know? I get on my knees and I pray for the resentment to be removed for that specific person. And I cannot tell you, okay, the miracle that occurs when it happens. Like, it really does work. It takes some time. Like, it really takes some time. Sometimes it depends on what it is, you know? I mean, if it's something small, it may take a week. If it's something that has been brewing for 20 years of my life, which I do have resentments that have been brewing for 20 years of my life that resurface from time to time, then I have to really pray on it for a while. And I have to pray at each of the behaviors of what's my part in that, and how am I interacting in that today, and how am I playing that out, you know? And I have to look at what my part is in that today and perpetuating that resentment. And because I don't want to be resentful. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to live out of, you know, yesterday, this guy that so my best friend and I are home group meetings on Tuesday nights. And this guy that I love, he's like one of the dearest men that I have ever met in the program. I almost said it, in 12-step programs. But anyway, if you guys don't know, and I haven't mentioned it on here, the reason why I don't say the specific program that I'm in has nothing to do with me being embarrassed or anything like that. It's that we are bound by traditions that tell us that we have no opinion in the public forum. So I'm not going to get on here and say what specific program I'm on. But anyway, he was talking about the acronym for fear, which I had always heard, and I've heard it his way too, but is fuck everything and run. And he was talking about, fear is, fear, anger, resentment, and, fear, envy, anger, and resentment. And he said are the 4 things that will take you down. And I was like, we were sitting there talking about that, and I was like, God, that's so right, fear, envy, resentment, or fear, I can't even spell fear. Fear, envy, anger, and resentment. And whenever I see those things creeping into my life, I need to let go of them. I need to work through them. And today the way that I work through it isn't just by sitting down on my knees and praying. It's first by inventorying it, sitting down on paper and looking at what's going on with me and why those things are coming out, and then praying on that, if that makes sense. Because I have to first understand it, Awareness is just the first key to all of this. I have to truly, truly understand what's going on with me. And this is not, you don't have to be in recovery. You don't have to be an addict or an alcoholic or whatever, You don't have to be in any kind of program or want to be in any kind of program to work any of these things in your life. It's like you can sit down and make a list of some resentments that you have and sit down and look at them and say, okay, do I want to hold on to these? Because sometimes we do. Sometimes they're serving a purpose in our life. Or maybe we're not at a point yet where we're ready to let go of that resentment or that anger, or that envy or, whatever, that fear. There have been many things in my life that I'm not willing to let go of at that point because to some degree they're doing something for me. But what I realized today in my life is that those things don't really do anything for me. But that's why I have to have a support network like my sponsor, like my friends, like this man that has, 44 years of sobriety that can just break it down for me really quick, Or, like all of my friends and my sponsor and everybody that will say to me things that I need to hear. Like, no, you really don't want to hold on to this. Like, what is this resentment doing for you? It's doing absolutely nothing for you except for holding you back from the sunlight of the Spirit, or holding you back from having the greatest life you could possibly have. I don't want that anymore. I don't want negative blockage in my life, and I don't believe there's many people out there that do. I really, really don't. Ask yourself this, okay? When was the last time that you woke up angry? When was the last time that you woke up with a resentment? When was the last time that you woke up with a true fear? When was the last time you woke up with envy in your heart? For most of us, okay, I don't think that we could go past a month without being really honest with ourselves and saying, we felt at least one of those in our heart in the last month. I'm just speaking for myself. There's probably a few of you out there that have not felt those things, but for myself in the last month, I can say honestly that I have. But I don't want those. So then the second question would be, do you want that in your life? Do you want that holding you back? Because I don't. And so for me, it's looking at it directly and seeing what I need to do to get it out of my life. And for me, a lot of times it's praying for that person and understanding, And one of the things that praying for a resentment to be removed or praying for another person that I have a resentment towards to does is it humanizes them for me. And it makes me realize that I am no better than they are. And we all have shit in our lives. And it makes me be able to see them as people that are forgivable and understandable, and then I'm able to work through the resentment just like I would want people to be able to do that with me. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow.